Hi, I'm Jonathan Block. In this video, I'm going to do some ambient bass sound-on-sound looping, Frippertronics style, with a Boss RE-202 Space Echo set in long delay mode of 6 seconds. The signal chain is a Gibson SG Standard bass. The output from the bass goes into a Boss volume pedal I have on the ground. The output from the volume pedal goes into a Boss GT1000core multi-effects. And the stereo output from the GT1000core goes into the Boss RE-202 Space Echo. As I mentioned, I have this in what they call long delay mode, which gives you up to 6 seconds of delay. That's how you can do some very cool Frippertronics style sound-on-sound looping, which was between 5 and 6 seconds of delay. Link down in the description to a video where I go in depth into how to set up this and how to use it and create loops for the bass. Also have a video that explains it for the Mellotron. So the first thing I'd like to do is just demonstrate some of the sounds I'm going to use. Then I will just do a short sample loop so I can kind of go over a few of the, particularly right at the beginning, some of the things I'll be doing. And then I will just do a jam and improv. So right now, let's hear the clean sound from the bass. Clean is a relative term because even though right now I have all the effects off on the GT1000core from the front panel, there's still a little bit of compression going and a little bit of reverb. So this is what the quote-unquote cleanish sound is like on the GT1000core. So in general, this is kind of a vintage muddy type of bass. And then I have flatwound strings on it, which certainly doesn't help it cut through the mix. However, as you can hear, there are things you can do from an EQ perspective to just make the sound a little more, I guess, a less muddy and a little more so it'll cut through a bit as much as possible. So right now I'm not using any EQ on the GT1000core, but what I am doing is, so I have the bridge pickup set completely open, and I only have a little bit of the front pickup. That's, if I turn the front pickup all the way up, you can get a little bit more boomy, bassy sound. So just by opening up a little, lowering that, really opens up the sound. All right, the first thing on the GT1000core, let me go through some sounds that I'm going to use. I've created a whole bunch of patches, more than I can use today. So I'll do another video in the future, same thing, but using the other half of the patches I created. So when it gets time to soloing, I'll use kind of one of my standard bass patches that I have here that just has some overdrive, some modulation, and some delay. But I probably won't be using the distortion on this patch. So let me just turn on the, so you can hear. Got some phaser. Turn that off. Do want to point out, so this is a great multi-effects for any instrument, and it does have bass-specific patches in it, but in my experience, I can use any pedal with this, or any bass, as long as there's a mix knob. So as long as you can mix in some clean sound, you can really keep the characteristics of your bass, but then just have a little bit of the sound, in this case, modulation. So it's really, so you can hear the phaser, but it's really not overpowering. And that clean sound comes through. Throw in some delay. Not a lot of repeats. Just give it some space and distance. All right. And then I've got a patch here that I use to create loops with the bass, because essentially, octave up. And as you can hear, tracking's not bad. I'm going down to the F and the G. Let's add some distortion to that. And chorus. I mean, I wouldn't play it like this. This is, you know, kind of what we're going to get. Let's try some harmonics. So you get some cool. when the loop is going and I add that, it actually sounds more like an organ. We'll get to that in a few minutes. This is just a soundscapey thing. Whoops. So this is like a shimmer. Get that organ sound. Here's another pad. A little more. And again, I'm not going to be playing these like this. I mean, they're not going to be exploding all over the loop. That's why the volume pedal's good. You just bring a little in, bring it right back out. All right. This is a slap bass sound I made. Actually, I'm not going to use this. This is just kind of in there, but, well, let's hear what it sounds like. Volume pedal. Yeah, I mean, it's not really a bass to slap with, and I mean, I'm not really a slapper anyways. I more slam it against the fingerboard a la Jack Cassidy or John Wetton. All right, let's keep going on. Another organ-y space sound. A little more spacious. Okay, so this is a synth with an octave, lower octave. Again, for all the noise and all this other stuff, it's actually tracking pretty well for a multi-effects, and on bass too, with round wound strings. Excuse me, flat wounds. So I'm actually going to use this sound, but in an interesting way, and let me just leave that until we do the sample loop. This is another soundscapey. This was actually a patch that I found on here using the Terra Echo sound. So we'll see how that goes. A lot of these get lost once the loop's going. And here's another solo sound, and this reminds me of John Wetton, so I just call this Wetton bass. So let's get the... there's a tremolo and a bass flanger. So, again, slamming it against the fingerboard, kind of get a little of that Wetton sound. Okay, you get the idea. And that's essentially it. Those are all the sounds I'm going to use. Let me go back to that synth octave sound. Again, that's this. What I'm actually going to do with this is just to make some noise. So let's, at this point, let me do the sample loop. So let's get the RE-202 Space Echo going. Again, check out the video in the link below to see how you can set this up and use this for the looping. Let me turn the volume pedal down. So before I even get going here, I'm just going to kind of bang on this to get some vibrations going, and then I'll kind of fade it in and you'll hear. So we get kind of this noise cloud. Whoops, not looping it. Okay, let's turn... All right, loop is going. Let's try this again. I mean, it's still kind of going, but let's just bang a little more and get in here. And also, get some weird electronic stuff going. Gotta unlock the phone to get the sounds. Get some of that. Magnets and magnets. Okay, you get that idea. Then let's slowly fade out of this to keep that noise going. And then I will go to that first sound with that high octave sound, the distortion and the chorus that I said would sound more like an organ once the loop was going. So let me just do a few harmonics. Just going to add notes. a lot faster than I would in the Jam. Just a bunch of harmonics. So you can hear it sounds like an organ. And at this point, that noise is fading in the background slowly. And then I would disengage. This is a good point to disengage the space echo. So now we're not going to add anything to the loop. And we can kind of do some soloing here. So again, I'm back to that original patch, not using overdrive, but phaser and some master delay. Apologies, I apologize for this. In every video I use the GT1000core, but the camera, I just cannot get the screen on here to show up. So that's kind of why I'm talking so much about it. Do some soloing here. So you get the idea. All right, let me reset everything here, and I will do a jam. Keep that going in the background. So you can hear, I let that go on a little longer than I expected. I actually was thinking of adding more stuff, but this E to G thing worked out well. But you can hear how the sound, using the Boss Space Echo for sound-on-sound looping, how it changes the sound. Really gets rid of a lot of the low end, a lot of the high end, which is not there to begin with. And just, you get this nice kind of mid-rangey, hollow, woody quality over time, and everything starts smearing. And I have it set to where the volume and the degradation of the sound quality is as slow as possible. It's not possible to do it without any of that happening because, first of all, this isn't a traditional looper. It's a delay, and I'm using it in the sound-on-sound kind of paradigm, Frippertronics paradigm, where you want things to fade out. I have the repeat set at about 130 or 2. That's the point where sound's still going to degrade, but the volume is really going to take a long time to decrease. And then you can just lower this over time, and obviously each successive pass will get quieter and quieter. All right. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and good luck with your own music.